We're joined in this episode by Teagasc Grass10 advisor Niamh Doyle to give a monthly update discussing grassland management tips for the month ahead. Niamh discussed the higher growth rates we've seen over the past couple of weeks and the impact that has had on grazing this back end. We discussed the closing plan and the importance of staying on target. And we finish up with Niamh offering some tips on achieving good graze outs. We hear now from Niamh.
New dry period did allow animals to remain grazing, and there is reduced pressure now on winter supplies, especially in areas that, due to poor growth rates or droughts, have had to sustain considerable supplements since late summer. But overall, if we look at the growth rates from October and November, they've been above normal for this time of year. On average, from mid-October to mid-November, growth rates were 6 kilos of dry matter per hectare per day higher than the 5-year average. So this has put an extra 250 kilos of dry matter per hectare on farms, which is equivalent to 1 bale per hectare during this period, which was very welcomed in this tough grass growing year. However, with cold and wet forecasts in store, growth rates will return to normal this week.
Niamh, if we take the combined improved growth rates that we've all seen and better grazing conditions, we've seen a lot better utilisation. So it really has, you've got a double whammy there, improving conditions for farmers this back end.
Yes, it has, and we've got more out covers as well, which has helped this back end, especially during a tough growing grass year.
Niamh, just in terms of covers, and I suppose we need to consider our closing plan here as well. What are covers like across the country and where do we need to get them to?
So covers around the country are very varied. However, it's important to keep monitoring your average farm cover to reach your closing targets. You want an average farm cover of 500 kilos dry matter per hectare in December at closing.
And look, that's really putting the bank there for next spring. It's helping grass grow on. Just in terms of closing, it's important we talk about the closing plan, and it might be a little bit more complicated this year. I suppose the two considerations was some farms went in with maybe less than ideal cover, under pressure grazing, but also because we have seen that good grass growing conditions, there might be a temptation there to go back. So maybe we start with what the targets are and what we need to do.
So your target now is to have 40% close. So then as we approach late November, the target is to have 60% of the farm closed. Then you want 80% by mid-December and the remainder then by late December/early January. Can you continue to close your paddocks in order you plan to graze them for next spring?
Niamh, that first 40%, the reason that's very important is that's going to be the fastest growing grass next spring. That's going to be what gets us out, a turnout into good covers. There may be a temptation there to regraze them, given the fact we've seen grass accumulate on them for the last couple of weeks.
Exactly. So with such excellent grazing conditions, there is that huge risk that farmers will, graze on. That temptation is there as, covers that you close or paddocks that you close up in October or early November, the regrow has been so good. However, doing this will have a severe negative impact on grass availability at turnout and consequently ewe and lamb performance next spring. So every week ground continues to be grazed in December, it will reduce grass availability next April by 150 kilos of dry matter per hectare, which will have a big impact on supply. So stick to the closing plan to provide good opening covers this spring for ewes and lambs post turnout.
We're talking about closing paddocks. In terms of graze outs, it's been a relatively easy back end to hit targets because conditions have been so good. What is our target there again? Just maybe the recap on it and any words of caution around that.
Yeah, so it has been very easy to achieve good graze outs. But however, as the weather turns, this might get a bit more difficult. So the aim is to continue to graze out pastures tight to 3.5 to 4 centimetres to allow light to the base of the sward. Use temporary fencing if required to reach post-grazing targets without forcing sheep to graze too low for prolonged periods. It may also be an option to merge mating groups after the first cycle, aiming to get paddocks grazed out quicker while limiting any negative impact on ewe reproduction performance.
Niamh, I think that's some very useful advice for the coming month. Appreciate you coming on.
Thanks very much, Kieran.
We leave it there for this episode. I've included a link in the show notes where you can subscribe to the Teagasc Grass10 newsletter. That's it for me. For updates on our sheep programme, keep an eye on our Twitter page at Teagasc Sheep. I'm Kieran Lynch. Thanks for joining us. Don't forget to subscribe and follow us wherever you get your podcasts.